Now let's study about the factors which affect the elasticity of demand. As far as the factors are concerned, the first factor is the availability of substitutes. For example, if the price rises of a commodity and the price of its substitutes, which are easily available in the market, remain constant, then the elasticity increases. For example, if the price of Coke increases but the price of Pepsi remains the same, then there is going to be a drastic decline in the sales of one such drink, which means when there is an availability of close substitutes, when instead of one we can use another and the price of that has not increased, this definitely is going to affect the sale of another commodity. That means the elasticity is more in such cases. Second is income of the consumers. Well, if it is the high income group, if it is that bracket which gets lots of money or which earns a lot, then the elasticity will not be that much. But if we talk of the consumers who fall in the bracket of low income group, then the elasticity would be more, because when it pinches the pocket of the consumer, he is definitely going to buy less if the price increases. But with people who earn very high, the price rise does not make much of a difference. Third is luxuries versus necessities. Now, when the price increases and it's a luxury item and the price increases if it's a necessity, they are going to show different elasticities. Supposing going to a 5-star to eat, and if the price increases, then definitely less people are going to go to eat there. But as far as necessities are concerned, meaning to say our daily food or life-saving drugs, then definitely there is going to be no change or little change in the demand of the commodities. The next factor is the expenditure of the consumer on the item. For example, if the price of salt increases, and that is even by 100%, say the packet of a salt, it was 10 rupees and now it is 20 rupees, but still the consumer is going to buy salt because it is just that we need little quantity of that. Besides, it is such a big necessity and the expenditure which is done on that commodity is very, very less, say 0.1% of our income. But if the price of the cars increase, then what happens? Then the demand comes down drastically, because the money spent on buying the car is substantially very high to buying a salt or a matchbox. So, when we spend less money on buying a commodity and the price of that commodity increases, we still tend to buy it. But if the price or the expenditure that we do on a commodity is high and it increases the price, then definitely there is going to be less demand. That is elasticity and less elasticity. Next is, supposing the commodity is very useful to us or the number of uses of that commodity is in many ways. For example, if it is say eggs, I can eat boiled eggs, I can make cakes out, I can bake cakes out of it, I can use it in my breakfast table at my dinner. So, there are number of uses of that commodity, but the price has increased. So, what I am going to do is I am going to make less use of that as I am doing it in various forms. For example, I can take another example also, say for electricity. We use electricity as to give us light in a room, we use it for fan, we use it as an AC, we use it even as a cooking medium in the microwave ovens and all. But if the price of electricity increases, then what am I going to do? I am definitely going to use it to light my room, for my fan, but I am going to make less use of it in my air condition, and maybe I do not use my microwave oven. So, when the number of uses of the commodity is much more than one, then what happens? Then the elasticity is very high of that commodity. Next is the time period. As the time changes, or when we look for more time to find a substitute, that is the time that the quantity demanded of the good remains constant. For example, if supposing it was 10 years back, not 10, maybe 20 years back, if the price of the petrol would rise, we would still have to buy it because there was no substitute easily available. But with the LPGs and the CNGs and so on, now there are more things which we can use instead of the petrol. So, here brings in all the changes. These factors make a commodity elastic or inelastic in nature. The topic is the measurement of price elasticity of demand. There are three methods of measuring the elasticity of demand, and let us study about the first method, which is called as the total inlay method and also named as expenditure method. To understand this total outlay method, we are going to look at it by giving a situation. Now, the first situation, the second situation and the third situation. In the first situation, the price has fallen of a commodity. When the price falls of a commodity, the expenditure increases of the consumer, and when the expenditure increases with the price fall, the situation is that there is increase in the commodity demanded, and this situation is called as elastic demand. Now, I will tell you in an easy way. It is the price of a commodity has fallen. Say from 10 rupees it has come down to 5 rupees, but the expenditure on this has increased. How is it done? Because if earlier at 10 rupees I was buying 1, at 5 rupees I will start buying 4. That means instead of 10 rupees I am spending 20 rupees on that commodity. So, surprisingly, with the price fall, the expenditure increases of the person on that commodity and he does not realize. But of course, there is increase in the commodity that he gets, and this is a total elastic situation. When the demand of a commodity fluctuates very high with the increase in the decrease or increase in the price. Now, the second situation, the price has fallen of a commodity, but the expenditure remains constant. Now, when this happens, then the quantity rises in proportion, and this is called as unitary elastic demand. That is, though the price has fallen, but our expenditure has remained constant. For example, if supposing As I gave the same example, a thing was of 10 rupees, now it is of 5 rupees. But I am not increasing the money which I spend on that commodity. So instead of the same 10 rupees, I am getting two things, two commodities. But my expenditure is same. That means the rise in quantity is proportionate because it is 5 rupees, so I am getting two things. Earlier it was 10 rupees, so I was getting one. So this situation, when the price has fallen, but I have not increased my expenditure, then of course the quantity which has risen is in proportion, and this is called as the unitary elastic demand. The third of its type is when the price falls, then my expenditure also falls. When my expenditure falls, then the quantity demanded rises in lesser proportion, and this is called as inelastic demand. So this means in the total outlay or the expenditure method, we are emphasizing on when there is a price fall or price rise, and if our expenditure increases, remains constant or falls, makes the difference on the situation of the consumer, of the quantity which is demanded, and thus accordingly we put it into the elastic, unitary elastic or inelastic demand. According to total outlay method, there are three kinds of elasticity: the elastic demand, the unitary elastic and the inelastic. One which is very fluctuating, one which is not affected much, and one which remains as such very stringent, very firm. So thus this explains that the situation of the rise in commodity is equal to the expenditure which is done by the consumer at the rate of price fall or price increase. The second method of measurement of elasticity of demand is the percentage method or the proportionate method. In this method, the elasticity has been divided or shown in 5 forms. The first of its kind is the perfectly inelastic demand. In this situation, the commodity does not change with the fluctuation in price. Now this can happen only in cases like buying of life-saving drugs. For example, if a person is about to die and whether that injection costs me 1000 rupees or there is an increase now and it costs me 2000 rupees, I am going to buy that. So in such situation, it's a perfectly inelastic demand wherein no change in quantity takes place in spite of the fact that there is a change in price. The second of its kind is the inelastic demand. In the inelastic demand, there is less than proportionate change. That is, the price has gone up, but still the quantity demanded has not decreased much. Now why? Because this could be goods like food, fuel, we cannot go without eating. So this is remaining at what we call inelastic. That is, even with the increase in price, the quantity demanded has not changed much. The third of its kind is the unitary elastic demand. In such situation, there is an equal change in the demand of the quantity at the price change. This can happen in normal goods, goods which we need or we can even do without them. So when the price has increased, we will see to it that we buy less or we don't buy. So this is the unitary elastic demand. Then is the elastic demand, that is more than proportionate change. This happens in luxuries. When the price of a car has increased, then we are going to see a proportionate or more than proportionate change in the sales of the car. Or going to a 5-star hotel to have your dinner is again coming in the category of elastic demand, wherein we are going to be frequent visitors or not, or there is going to be a more than proportionate change with the price rise. Then is the perfectly elastic demand. This is when there is an infinite change in the quantity demanded with the price rise. But this is an imaginary situation which generally does not happen. So, you have seen that the changes occur according to the commodities that we are buying, and accordingly they have been put into the kind of elasticity. Perfectly inelastic, inelastic, unitary elastic, elastic and perfectly elastic demand according to the percentage method or the proportionate method.